So here was my plan for tonight. So this is our kind of welcome back moment for those that were able to make the 15th of November with me, or it's a hello if you've not seen me since your launch event, or even if you weren't at the launch event, it's a definite hello. But the title was Wellbeing and Interventions to Excite the Inactive. The reason we made that the title for tonight was it is the new year and it's a great time to kickstart some new habits, isn't it? So I'm going to share a few ideas and thoughts around that space, but we also thought it would be worth, or it would be crazy not to share your current successes, challenges, things that are keeping you awake at night around COVID. So I don't know if you want to just type in the chat box, or if you feel like you've already kind of said it, but share a bit about what your COVID response is looking like for this week. I know, I'm teaching at the university, and my plan is to be the trainees will be wearing masks as they move around the campus, but in the sports hall, I will get them washing hands, doing more washing of equipment, but then it'll be masks off unless they want to wear it whilst we do our practical stuff. And I'm going to try to bubble them a bit so that at least I know that they've been in a certain group. And I guess you perhaps aren't doing that. Thankfully for me, they come in kits, so I don't have to worry about changing. But yeah, my biggest concern for all of you is that one of cover. And it's all very well asking the retired teachers to come back and help, but if I was 65 and I'd just left teaching, I know I wouldn't be turning back up. So yeah, awesome to get a few of those in the chat box.
We've got some in there already, Will, and I think they are just the ongoing cover worries and no time to do anything.
No, I totally get that. So hopefully that kind of tiny habits bit is one that might help you. The other one is for me, when I'm traveling, I try to tune into a podcast, which I find quite useful. So Simon Munday's, what used to be Don't Tell Me the Score, but is now Life Lessons Through Sport and Beyond. He's got some really good ones on training, nutrition, being productive with your time. And similarly, High Performance Podcast is a good one if you want to just do a bit of self-development whilst you're also on that treadmill of, can we survive another day or hour or hopefully week and term. Cool, thank you. And then just a heads up, 10th of March, we're going to do a bit of a deep dive into how to make PE teaching a bit more progressive. So how can we move away from that direct instruction skill drill stuff to more variety of models-based practice, blah, blah, blah. Then we're going to dig deep into assessment in May, and then start to support you to plan what changes might you make to your curriculum for next academic year when we meet in June. But I should imagine you're looking at that and going, look, I'm just trying to make Friday, Will. I'm not interested in what the rest of the week looks like or the rest of the year. So what we'll do is we'll get you to go and have a decent conversation in two groups of three, I think, and about these three questions, if that's all right. So we're going to give you 10 minutes to go and have a decent, this will hopefully be the most useful bit of tonight. So I would like you to think about what were you proud of in things that you achieved in and around PE last calendar year. What is your biggest priority for this year, other than surviving the week and not getting called for cover every single day? And then the third question is, what do you most want out of this session? So I've got a plan to share some stuff around well-being and inactive interventions, but I'm happy to throw that out the window and do something else if you guys come back from the breakout room saying, actually, I could really do with some advice on this, or can we talk about that? All right. So I don't know if it's worth you taking a picture or just scribbling some notes against those three questions. Otherwise, you might have 10 minutes of sitting and just looking at each other. But you've definitely got until 4:50 to make the most of being in a group of three, chatting a bit more. If I think you can kind of leave the breakout room early. You could come back to me or Emma if you wanted to. But otherwise, try and have 10 valuable minutes talking to each other. Is that all right, Emma?
Yep, that's absolutely fine. I'm going to open all the rooms, so you should be able to see those on your screen, and then you should be able to join those breakout rooms, and I will pause the recording.
This meeting is being recorded.
So yeah, I'll just fly through a few bits that hopefully are helpful. Feel free to interrupt me at any point, folks. But my plan was, we've done the kind of reconnect bit, the chance to talk about what you're proud of. I'm not going to spend too much time reminding you of the kind of Sport England programme, but I will touch on it. I mentioned before we started recording, you've got that access to the awesome PE course. I would say this because I wrote it, but I genuinely think it's very valuable and useful. And you need to try and instill a bit of a habit to get yourself to weekly do a part of it. So I would suggest looking in your diary and adding something to your calendar as a recurring meeting with yourself, of whether that's 30 minutes, maybe you work well in the morning or towards the end of the day, or even in the evening, and go, I'm gonna do a chunk of it once a week in this window. Then I want to jump past number 2, because I guess we've largely done that, unless anyone wants to throw a question at me. We're going to do a little bit on wellbeing and then a little bit on interventions, and we'll definitely be done for 5:30. I can stay on if anyone wants to talk, but I'm more conscious that let's not kill your energy levels before you've even started. So I don't want to spend time on this, but just that reminder of student voice should inform everything. Make sure you keep gathering it. Greater depth and variety of sports, so hence that point earlier of keep the breadth. It's what students need, but also they like breadth of experience, not just breadth of activity. So your sport education, your teaching games for understanding, your peer-led stuff, rather than scaling back to didactic teaching because you're tired or because of health and safety. The habit of trying to make sure that stuff's very student-centred. The bit 4, we'll talk about that a lot today, and a few of you have said it already, that how do you raise the profile of PE in school sport? How do you connect it to whole school issues? How do you connect it with the community? How do we, as a consequence of that, get more staff supporting and advocating for PE? And then as a consequence, hopefully by the end of this summer, but certainly beyond this summer, are your students more happy, healthy, well, employable, life skilled, etc. All right. So just that heads up, and I guess a well done publicly to Lara Poole, who's done a lot of work on the PE curriculum design course. She's halfway through that. I know only some people are on that. And then in terms of the awesome PE course, I know Will Grove, Rob Scammell, Sarah on the line, Ricky and Dan, who was on the line, have started. But just that reminder of this really is a step-by-step take you through, hopefully prompt and get you thinking and challenge you on purpose of PE, how you could teach PE a bit differently, how do you create an atmosphere in PE that's really meaningful, how you tweak your assessment to be the stuff that matters more, and then how you build your short, medium and long-term plan. So just a reminder to try and make a weekly habit to doing some of that content. If you're starting to worry about NGBs and whether they might change their guidance, if you've got a head teacher that really gets a bit panicky and goes health and safety overboard, maybe taking the copy of this and tweaking it for your school to communicate to senior leaders, to your department, to parents if they need it, that you do have a considered approach, that you are scaling up and scaling back. Like in my mind, testing in the school sports space, potentially with permission slips from parents, like, so you can make your PE lessons a little bit safer, but your extracurricular, parents have to consent to their kids being there, but as a consequence, it's going to be full contact rugby and it's going to be whatever else, that there's an increased risk of, I guess, transmission of COVID, but with that comes more fun, hopefully, as well. So that there's a bit more clarity on how you are scaling up and scaling back on this, depending on how the next months come. All right. So that form is there if you want to like tweak it and put your school badge on it and play around with it. All right. Please do interrupt if any of this needs proper explanation, but I'm trying to whiz through. I mentioned briefly a while ago that my favourite blog ever was this one by Joey Faith. I would really encourage, and that awesome PE course will help you do this. How do you unpick your purpose of PE, and then how do you articulate it? And I think it's a great way to spread that message of the value of PE, sport, physical activity, the advocacy for the subject stuff. So this might give you some nuggets of ideas. And the bit that I sent you that we've been using in not schools for a while, of these posters that are in every classroom. So again, it's the new year. That's a nice time to go, what's my new commitment to looking after my well-being? And the form tutor each week updates this poster with, here's what I'm doing at the moment to look after my well-being. Because they're all rubbish at coming up with good ideas, they can steal some from the back of the poster. And this is the bit, Emma, that you're doing an update to, that you're going to get out in February. Is that right?
Yeah, we're gonna send out some information about how, well, some assembly content and some presentations that could be used in tutor time for raising the profile, basically, of PE, school sport and physical activity. But I have sent these out already, but I can send them again.
Cool. So people could use this for the meantime, but there's going to be a jazzed up, prettier version coming soon. So for me, tutor time activity conversations around this are key, because I think this, like we've been talking for a long time, that every teacher is a teacher of literacy. We've got a 30 million word gap. And so oracy is important, and so's phonics and all the rest of it. Well, actually, in my mind, physical literacy was our first literacy. In fact, not even in my mind, it was. So we've got to get people moving more and being happier before they've got any chance of learning. The second bit that I think we should massively do is outlaw this idea of sporty and not sporty. So try and get rid of that language in 2022. A few of you have mentioned how nice it's been to see more and different kids turning up to stuff that you're doing. So can we take it to that next level of challenging parents to not use that language of sporty and not sporty, because it's not helpful. So yeah, that was just a thought. And then off the back of that Joey Faith blog, a lot of schools that I've worked with have ended up creating a wellbeing wall. So ideally not on the corridor of the PE department, but maybe that's where it starts. But actually, central in the main, outside the main hall, or as students enter school, now's a great time to do an assembly and then challenge all students and all staff to send in a picture and a caption of them celebrating their kind of personal wellbeing achievement. So you're trying to build a wall of a picture of every individual in the school and what it is that they did and why that was a personal achievement. So for some, that might be climbing a mountain. For others, it might be getting out of bed on the alarm. Or it might be, competing for a local team or winning a whatever, or might be more adventure driven, or it might be drinking more water or whatever. But try to challenge and maybe use your house points or your merit system, but find a way to hook all staff and all students into setting a challenge for themselves and hitting it that improves their personal well-being. And then I think that connected with the tutor posters and connected with a potential assembly about this stuff could be quite neat. Anyone already doing any of that or heard anything useful in what I've just said that's made them think, oh, I could? Somebody talk to me. Please.
I will. We didn't do it necessarily from a well-being perspective, but we did a similar kind of idea as we built up to open evening last half term. And we created a board in the department based around staff being active, and not just as the PE department, but for the whole staff. Now, admittedly, it was just staff based, but you could easily develop something like that again on a different board in the corridor, or like you say, somewhere in the main corridor in school, and kind of develop that onto student involvement as well. And as you say, I think rather than just being a sport related thing, you could do a personal wellbeing achievement can open up to anything, which again will hit a wider audience of people as well. So yeah, we could branch out from just doing an active kind of staff board to something more well-being whole school, definitely.
It just reminds me that's wicked, Tom. It reminds me of, we've had those honours boards for a while, haven't we, where, which of our students are representing in the county or the region or whatever, a bit of a pen profile on them. Like, great, we can have that as our, sporting achievements board, but this is the catch everyone board. Like, you can all get on this board, but how big a challenge you set yourself is a bit of a personal thing. So really nice, Tom, that you've got role models across the school, not just PE teachers, because we're expected to do this stuff, aren't we? But it's how do we promote the other people that are doing this stuff that's more powerful? So one other thing you might want to do on that, Tom, like this Girl Can campaign, I quite like it, but I think we're moving into a world where we need to stop talking about the binary of gender. So I would push away from the idea of, like, we've just changed our one at Red Hill from a this boy can and a this girl can board to a collective board, because we definitely want to move away from. So maybe that's a trap you could have easily fallen into that you might want to try not to. So cool. Thanks, Tom. I guess the other bit that the new year is a nice time to do is, if you're trying to reinvent PE a little bit, winning over parents and the communities to understand how it's changed, maybe in a newsletter or in a post on your website or in what you're pushing out through your Twitter feed, or however it is that you connect with your local catchment, if you like. I quite like using this idea of PE stands for positive experiences, kind of in and around movement. And I've done a bit of talking about the different currencies and how different students are attracted by different currencies, and our subject can be all of these currencies, and it's best to group students after a similar thing. So I've got groups I used to teach that were uber competitive, and they wanted competition. They wanted to know who won, who lost, who got man of the match, etc. So they're motivated by the Euros, and that's fine. And we're trying to stretch them to also have some other currencies, but keeping those together as a group works well. Similarly, you've got some that, the personal best, the dollars, the American dream of being the best is something that motivates them. Then you've got some that, I put this as the pounds because they're trying to lose pounds, but we've all got them, haven't we? Those groups where actually the purpose of PE is this is the only time in the week they're going to be active. So I want them getting out of breath, sweaty, and realizing that you don't die when those things happen. So there's that currency, if you like. And then I think the most valuable currencies are probably the gold and the diamonds. And they're the ones where you're trying to get people to be lost in the moment, having fun and happiness through just doing that. I get that escapism on the squash court, and sometimes I don't because I can't hit it as well as I wanted to. But I certainly do get some, losing myself in the moment. And then the diamond bit is, well, I got that from squash, but then when lockdown happened and I couldn't play squash, I found tennis and walking to fulfill the thing that I was missing from squash. So the gold and diamonds, I think, are the currencies that don't get lost quite as much with the stock exchange. And then at the top is the Bitcoin bit. I don't know if anyone of you follow Bitcoin, but it's properly crashing at the moment. But they're those transferable skills. Like, I think that's the new kid on the block. That can we get kids to be more resilient or more confident or more whatever through our activity area? And I think that has a certain currency for some kids. So I've got children that I teach that are not motivated by getting better at the overhead clear in badminton, but they do connect with that currency of showing resilience or perseverance at a task or improved motor skills. So yeah, thinking about those different currencies potentially helps. And definitely in terms of talking about the benefits of PE or what PE's purpose is, I think moving happy and more happy moving is probably a nice simple way to put that. And that gets me quite nicely into the well-being bit, and I guess the connection of well-being being a very personal thing. And I don't think we do enough at the bottom of this in school. So we don't do enough talking about spirit and soul. The New Zealand curriculum does a great job of this, like drawing on Maori culture and their heritage. So again, there's some stuff we can learn from other countries about how to, not necessarily being from a religious perspective, but maybe you're in a school that has some cultural diversity that you can draw on some of that, or some prominent religions. But actually, I'm not religious, but my spirit and my soul are important to me. So there's some stuff there that you can perhaps dig into. Have a go in the chat box for a moment. Low stakes quiz, and I want you to pick one of these words and type what you think the definition of it is. No one's going to see these, so you can be as long as you like, but you all have to type something until I've seen an answer. So you might write well-being is, write what you think the definition of well-being is. Don't go on Google. I don't care what he thinks. If anyone's typing's not working, you want to cool, thanks, Sarah. If anyone else is if your typing's not work, say it out loud. Tom's on the GCSE PE definition. And the reason I do this is I think we've started talking about well-being a lot, and we don't really talk about health anymore. And I'm just interested to know, why do we do that? Do we use the words interchangeably, or is there a difference between them? Cool. And I would say health is probably more of a measure. Let me just throw these up and get rid of the chat box. So health is exactly as Tom said, and more something that can be measured. Whereas I think well-being is more of a moment-to-moment concept, and it incorporates happiness, which is why I think we've moved as a nation and perhaps as a globe to talk more about well-being and wellness mattering, because it's about more holistic concept of feeling good. But again, I'm just hoping that's helpful when you're starting to maybe plan an assembly to look at some of this stuff, or starting to talk about your PE curriculum being about well-being. Well, do you help children and staff? Are you on the same page when you're talking about what these things mean? Next little bit, I'm saying we're recovering from coronavirus. I'm not sure, but like we're coping with. Can you, hopefully the animate thing will work. Can you just draw a bit on the three of these that worry you the most? So hopefully you can find the annotate tool and pick, I don't know, a stamp. You could pick the star stamp and put it on next to it. So pick something or just draw a squiggle. Pick the three that worry you the most.
I was going to say, well, if people can't annotate or they can't find their stampers, they could put their 3 in the chat box, just giving you the numbers.
Yep. And sorry that there's 2 9s. That's not me like Darren Browning you, trying to make you say that. Thanks, Shane. And again, this might be something you want to do with your PE team at some time, or with SLT, or just to see if you're on the same page about the big worries that you have in your school at the moment. And then could one of these things be a theme for a term that becomes something that you give lots of feedback on, that you talk about, that you bring to life, that you mention in assemblies, that you just dig into a bit of a concept that you talk more about. Cool, thank you, folks. And I guess some of those connect with, since September 2019, there's been that pressure on us, September 2020, to put the relationship, sex and health ed policy kind of embedded across the curriculum. So again, just a reminder of the explicit aspects of that you got to cover off. Anyone ever come across a wheel of wellbeing? Tom, that's such a hesitant nod. That's like a yes, but I don't want to say yes because you'll pick on me.
There are so many different versions, aren't there?
Yeah. So the version I like is, it's drawing stars. How do I not draw a star? That's better. The version I like is this one, that I guess keeps it simple and talks about the 6 bits of body. So if you want to be more well, you need to work on these 6 interconnected bits. So get active more to release happy hormones, work on your mind, learning things builds your confidence and improves your life satisfaction. The spirit bit of that whole, a small act of kindness to someone else actually does you more good than them often, even if it's holding a door open for someone. The people bit, the connecting with people, is what actually makes us all feel like we're a part of something. The place one of taking notice. I always thought I had to go to a really fancy exotic land to see nice, beautiful things, but lockdown 1, I realized there was quite nice things on my doorstep. And then the planet bit, certainly the kids we teach are more into this than we are, but they're raising our awareness, aren't they, of go green. So Tom, is this similar to version that you've seen, and do you talk about this with kids at all? Do you share this?
We currently don't, but it's one of the things that, in terms of planning ahead and making changes to curriculum, this is the kind of thing that I think we need to be more mindful of incorporating into our lessons. And how we do that and how we deliver that, we're kind of still work in progress. But yeah, it's things that do come up, don't they, from time to time in lessons, and you do find yourselves talking to students about it, but whether or not we place a specific emphasis on them, I'm not sure. But yeah, it's something which, reinvigorating our curriculum, is something which I need to be mindful of. As a department, we need to be doing more of.
I wrote a whole load of resources last summer, like 12 lessons worth of stuff to embed some of this wellbeing stuff, because like you said, a lot of the schools I work with in Nottingham, they felt like they sort of do it, but they're not sure that they do it with depth and like consistency of coverage, right? Some teachers get on their soapbox about it and watch out for stuff in the news, and then the next class might not hear anything about these things. So yeah, I think it's that finding a balance of, they come to PE to be active, but actually if we can get the cogs turning a little bit about some of these things, and for me, that's where assemblies and display boards and tutor time are your definite grab some extra time so that you don't lose PE moving time. But yeah, cool. And yeah, I guess my thing about wellbeing is it's a taught and caught thing, isn't it? The steps about wellbeing, we can teach some of this stuff explicitly, and we need to plan for where we're going to teach about being more resilient, or about being more confident, or about better social connections. But we also can kind of catch it. We can spot opportunities where there's often, it's a misconception, it being done badly, that we can pick up on, like, teamwork being done badly when they're falling out with each other and blaming each other, rather than, what you'd achieve more as a team if, and then you start to learn a bit about team dynamics because you spotted an opportunity, or giving praise to someone for it. Conscious I've only got 4 minutes left, so I'm going to share a few interventions that I've come across that are really geared at inactive students, and I'm keen to hear from any of you if you've come across or used any others that are good. So I mentioned earlier that this girl can stuff. They keep producing stuff that's useful. Georgina, that was at our launch day, was massively involved in the Studio U production of video clips and stuff that I think is pretty useful. Obviously, Youth Sport Trust have been massively involved in 3 big projects here. So Girls Active, Active in Mind, trying to get young mentors that support those. So it might be some year 10s, 11s, 12s who become young mentors for year 7s, 8s that are perhaps really disengaged with school or really disengaged with physical activity. So there's some really useful stuff on that Active in Mind resource page. Boys Move, YST's doing a load of work at the moment on, I think we've been very focused on girls for a long time, which is great, but middle class white boys, they're starting to see this kind of dip off in, if they're not sporty, they're not doing. So how can we have a bit more of a focus on them? And then I don't know if you do a Catch the 5K program, but there's some really good ones on, like the NHS has got one, the BBC has got one. It's something that kids hear about. Again, January is a nice time to potentially do a Catch the 5K challenge as a health related fitness unit. Obviously Joe Wick's World and all of the different HIIT trainers and blah blah blah. And I don't know if any of you try to bring parents in, but like lads and dads or other kind of community connection stuff. So anyone come across or done any interventions that have worked well for you that I've not listed that try and hook in inactive kids?
And just to say as well, Will, we have got the Girls Active programme that there'll be some CPD available to schools, and we're just finalising dates and tutors for that.
Awesome.
But Girls Active will be coming up later on in the year.
Awesome. Come on, somebody share something that's been affected, or have you used any of those? Anyone used like Studio U, for example, or done a Catch to 5K? So it doesn't have to be a new one, but in the next 30 seconds, and then we can leave on time.
I haven't done Couch to 5K, but during the lockdown we just did competitions between classes of who could what group could run the furthest or just move the furthest. Actually, we didn't say what they had to do there. Some of them rode on their bike. If they've all got the watches and that to track how far they're going, it was just a bit of a competition like that. It wasn't the most successful thing, but it was one of the things that seemed to get them moving when we were down.
And it's that the social connection element to it that I think does really well, Becky. So the reason Park Run does so well is they celebrate debutants. First time you've been to one, they celebrate, your 5th, your 10th, your 20th. They keep a track of those records. And the guy, Dr. William Bird he's a GP that set up Intelligent Health. He does this beat the street thing. So he goes around communities and basically does a step challenge between classes of primary school kids, but he's not trying to change the habits of the kids. He's trying to change the habits of their parents, but he does it through working with the kids. So yeah, just that knowledge that it's that social connection is probably the most powerful bit to it. Like they're working towards a ward, and then you embed habits because they're trying to work as a house or as a tutor group or as a whatever. So cool. I'm done. Thank you for listening. I hope it was